You can feel alone in a full house. Loneliness isn't always a lack of people. Sometimes it's a lack of moments where you actually feel reached. You can sit at a family dinner, loved, and still feel that particular quiet. A Chinese wellness perspective offers a gentler response than, go out more. Don't force the feeling away. Tend the parts of ordinary daily life where connection can quietly return, through rhythm and small repeated acts. An idea called sheng, the nourishing of everyday life. So here are 7 habits for the days that feel empty. Not make more friends, and nothing that asks you to become louder or busier. Small, tendable things, and the last one changes how the whole feeling sits. One honest word first, and it matters. If loneliness is with you most days, if it's affecting your sleep, appetite, how you function, or your sense of hope, please talk to a doctor, a mental health professional, or someone you trust. These habits don't replace real support, grief help, or close relationships. They're for tending the ordinary ache alongside those things, not instead of them. Start wherever the feeling reaches you hardest. For many, that's the very beginning of the day. The first habit reconnects you to the wider social world through brief, low-pressure contact. It is not an attempt to rebuild a close relationship. That's a different habit, later. Pick one predictable point in your day, buying something, walking outside, checking the mail, arriving at work, passing a neighbor, or joining an online group. At that point, do one small thing that isn't strictly necessary. Offer a genuine greeting, ask one ordinary question, send one brief message, or trade a single sentence that isn't just a transaction. One voluntary exchange is enough for today. Here's the honest version of why. Brief contact with acquaintances and even strangers can support a sense of belonging for a lot of people. It is not a substitute for close relationships, and it may not lift deep loneliness right away. But loneliness tells you that connection has to be big, a close friend, a long talk, and because that feels far off, you do nothing at all. This is the opposite instruction. Aim small, aim often. Many little moments of being met, across a day, are their own kind of connection. The second habit isn't about people directly, it's about your week, and the way empty days blur into each other with nothing to mark them. Put one activity into your week that happens at the same time, at least once, whether or not you feel like it that day, and make it something your actual life allows. This matters if you have mobility limits, hearing or vision difficulties, caregiving to do, no transport, little money, or you live somewhere rural and far from things. So the list is wide on purpose. An in-person class or a library group, a faith community gathering, a volunteering slot, a walking group, a market visit, or, just as valid, a scheduled video call, a weekly telephone check-in, an online class, a community group on a screen. The goal is one reliable place in the week that doesn't depend on that day's mood. What this builds isn't friendship, at least not at first, and it may not become that, so don't hinge it on the promise. What it gives you is a rhythm larger than yourself, a place you fit in time. Familiarity and belonging, where they come, tend to grow slowly. Within sheng, this is the ordinary work. Daily life tended through steady rhythm rather than mood. The third habit gives your care and attention somewhere to go. Choose one living thing or one small responsibility and tend it for 2 to 5 minutes at the same time each day. A plant on the sill, an herb pot, a bird feeder, a garden bed, an animal if your life suits it, or a small responsibility that points outward, watering a shared plant at work, checking on a neighbor, preparing something for a group you're part of, helping with a task that recurs. The completion cue is simple. The care task got done. Nothing more is required of it. Here's the modest, honest claim. Responsibility can create rhythm and a sense of purpose, and both of those tend to sit alongside loneliness and ease the shape of the day a little. It does not replace human connection, and it isn't meant to, but when you have attention and care to give and nowhere obvious to put them, choosing one small target lets them move again, outward, into something that responds to being tended. That movement is worth something on its own. Now one that's harder, and clearly different from the first. Habit 1 was brief contact with the wider world. This is one deliberate attempt to renew a relationship that already exists. Once this week, choose one safe and appropriate person and send a single low-pressure message. Something like, "I was thinking of you," no pressure to reply quickly, "I hope you're well." That's the whole thing. And some real boundaries, because reaching out isn't always safe or wise. Don't contact someone who was abusive or unsafe to you. Respect it if a person has asked for space. Don't send message after message when there's no reply, and don't use the message to demand an explanation or settle an old score. That isn't reaching, it's collecting. The habit is complete when you've sent one respectful message and let go of controlling what comes back. Because here's the part loneliness gets wrong. It sets you by the phone keeping score. Who hasn't called, who drifted, and waiting to be reached for keeps you exactly where you are. Reaching first is the move. A reply may not come, and if it doesn't, that's genuinely disappointing. But a silence is not a full verdict on your worth. It's one message, from one person, on one day. You reached. That part is yours, regardless of the answer. The first 4 habits create contact, rhythm, and purpose, turning outward. But loneliness can survive even in a busy room, once it has quietly turned into a story about your worth. The next 3 habits deal with that quieter wound, the way an empty feeling becomes self-rejection, the relationship you have with your own solitude, and how you notice or create the next thread of connection. Notice how you talk to yourself when no one else is there. For a lot of people who feel alone, that inner voice has gone quietly cruel in the empty hours, and with no one else in the room, it goes unanswered. So when a harsh, absolute thought arrives, do 3 things with it. Catch it, name the feeling underneath it, then rewrite it into something more precise and more true. Nobody cares becomes, "I feel uncared for tonight." I'm a burden becomes, "I'm afraid of asking for too much." I'll always be alone becomes, "I can't see the next connection yet." Notice what's happening there. You're not calling the thought a lie, and you're not arguing the feeling away. You're removing only the always, the nobody, the forever, the absolute part that was never accurate, and letting the real feeling stand. Then ask yourself one question. What would I say to someone I loved if they said this about themselves? Say a version of that to yourself. The whole thing takes under a minute. How you speak to yourself can make the empty hours gentler or harsher. That's the honest size of it. The practice of Jingzhuo offers one way in. Sit for 3 minutes, let a thought come, answer it once, and then stop arguing with it for the rest of the sitting. You're not emptying your mind. You're learning to be in your own company without it turning on you. The 6th habit takes a piece of the time you dread and changes your relationship to it. Carefully, without pretending it fixes anything. Once a week, set aside 20 to 45 minutes for one thing you do alone, because it's genuinely enjoyable or meaningful to you. Tea by the window, unhurried, a book, a safe walk somewhere you find beautiful, one meal cooked with care and eaten slowly, music, gardening, something you make. The point isn't to fill the time, it's that the time was chosen. Here's the careful version, because this is easy to overstate. Choosing the activity may make one stretch of an empty evening feel a little more like solitude than like loneliness. It does not remove the human need for other people, and it isn't a lesson in needing them less. It sits alongside reaching outward, not in place of it. A Chinese wellness view frames it through quiet and attention, giving one part of your own day some care, the way you'd give it to anything else you tend. Some of that time, chosen and attended, can be genuinely good. That's all it needs to be, not a cure, just an hour that belongs to you. Now the last one, and it changes how the whole feeling sits, because it deals honestly with how a day actually went. Before bed, ask one question. What connection happened today? A greeting counts. A message, a call, a shared activity, care you gave, or help you received. Being listened to. Taking part in a group, if something did happen, name it in a single sentence. Not forced gratitude, just honest noticing. And if the honest answer is that none happened, because some days genuinely contain none, then don't manufacture one. Instead, choose one safe, specific thing for tomorrow. Send one message, make one call, go to your weekly anchor, greet one person, or ask someone for support. One concrete next step. That's the whole habit. Either you name the connection that was there, or you schedule the next one. Both are real answers. Here's the reframe underneath it. You've likely been treating connection as something you either have or don't, a possession other people grant or withhold. But connection is partly something we receive and partly something we practice, in small, repeated acts. Reviewing the day this way trains you to see the thread where it's real, and to lay down the next piece where it isn't. That won't solve loneliness on its own. Relationships need response, access, safety, and community, and those aren't yours to control alone. But the practicing is yours, and it's more than the feeling lets you believe. So, one small contact each day, one steady anchor in your week, one thing to tend, one safe message sent without waiting on the reply, one cruel thought caught and made more true, one stretch of solitude you actually choose, and one honest look each night at the connection that happened, or the one you'll reach for next. Don't try all 7 tomorrow. Choose the point where loneliness reaches you most strongly, the empty morning, the shapeless week, the waiting for someone to call, or the voice that turns the feeling against you. Start there, with one. Tell me in the comments, which small connection could you create this week? You still have warmth to give. The next step is finding one safe place where it can be met. Next time, the Chinese habits for a mind that won't stop working long enough to rest.